Hello, and welcome back to Philosophy 1301, Introduction to Philosophy. The purpose of this video will be to briefly give you some guidelines for the discussion board assignments. So to begin, just to recap what the purpose of the assignment is. The purpose of this assignment is to give you an opportunity to discuss the major arguments and ideas that we'll be talking about in this class with not only myself, but also your classmates. The idea here will be to really build a community of engagement where I hope that we're responding to each other's ideas and learning not just from the lecture videos, but also from the contributions that all the students in the class are making with each other. So I'm going to start by going through the basic nuts and bolts of the assignment. So as I explained in the previous video, there are 20 discussion board assignments, each is worth 10 points. And for each assignment, you will be required to make 2 posts. So you'll be required to make what I call a first post, in addition to a response post. And to see this and understand the difference, let's actually look at an example of one of these assignments. So let's go to Blackboard, and in course content, let's check out week 1. And here we see discussion board 1. So there are a couple of things that you see about discussion board 1. I'm going to actually start with the thread that's entitled Ask the Professor. So what is the purpose of this thread? Well, if we click on that thread, there's not a discussion prompt here. It just tells you that you can use this thread to ask any content questions that you have about the material. So basically, if there's any question you have as you're doing the readings or listening to the lectures that you would like to have me answer and that you think the rest of the class would also benefit from hearing, right? So not particular questions about your grade or your situation in the course, right? Those are things to email me with. But questions about the material that you would like me to answer and make sure that I see in a detailed way, then you should post them here. So it gives you an easy way to get feedback from me about the material. But the main thing to keep in mind is that none of the posts that you make in the Ask the Professor area are meant to meet the requirements for the discussion board assignment. It just gives you another way to get an easy hold of me to answer content questions. But where you need to go to post to meet the requirements for the assignment are all the threads entitled discussion board 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So, and then they'll have a number of questions afterwards. So this first one says discussion board 1, question 1. Now for discussion board 1, there's only one possible question, so let's click on that thread. And you'll see here there's a prompt, right? This first prompt is basically just about introducing yourself and getting us to think a little bit about what philosophy is and what a philosophical question is. But in order to meet the basic and minimum requirements for discussion board 1, you first need to post a response to this prompt. And that's your first post. And that's always going to be due by the end of the day, Thursday each week. And that first post should be at least 100 words. Right, so to get basic credit for participation in the assignment, you need to respond to the prompt. It needs to be on topic by Thursday at the end of the day, and it needs to be at least 100 words. So then the hope is that by the end of the day, Thursday, everyone has made their first post, and so now we'll have a bunch of posts in this thread. And once that happens, then by the end of the day on Sunday, you have to respond to at least one other person. That could be another person in the class, or it could be myself. And there's no word requirement on your response post to another person. But just to get the 10 points, you need to meet those 2 basic requirements. Now, when I'm looking, for instance, at how to grade you beyond just those basic requirements, there's a host of other factors I'll look at. And these have to do with the quality of your post, right? So does your post show that you really understand the material? Does your post show that you did the reading closely? Does it show that you're really understanding and attempting to engage with your classmates? Right, so for the posts that do that in a really substantive way, that are very detailed, that show deep thought about the material, then for those posts, I would consider giving some extra credit. Right, so to meet the basic requirements to get the initial 10 points, you just need to make sure the post's on time, it meets the word requirement, it's on topic, that sort of thing. But the posts that are really excellent, and to get the extra credit, I'll really be looking at the quality of your post and the way you're engaging with your classmates. Okay, so that's a basic explanation of where you can find the assignment, what I'll be looking for when I grade it. Now, there's one other thing I want to point out that might cause some confusion if I don't explain it. Let's go to a different discussion board. Let's go to week 2 and discussion board 3. So one thing you'll notice here is that in this case there is, of course, the Ask the Professor thread, but there's also 2 discussion question threads. There's discussion board 3 question 1, and there's also discussion board 3 question 2. And if you open these up, you'll see that each of them has a different prompt, right? So here's the prompt for discussion board 3 question 1, and here's the prompt for question 2. So the question you might have is, well, do I need to respond to both of these, right? To get credit for discussion board 3, do I need to have a first post on question 1 and 2 and a response post on question 1 and 2? And the answer is no, right? You only need to have, for each discussion board, you only need to have 1 first post and 1 response post. And if there are multiple questions, then you can simply ignore 1 question, or if you don't want to answer question 1, you can just leave that alone and only do question 2. Or you could split it. Maybe you do a first post on question 1 and maybe you do a response post on question 2, right? Any of those would be fine. And of course, it would also be perfectly fine if you respond to both. And people who do respond to both discussion questions and do so in a substantive and a way that their post has a lot of quality to it, for those excellent posts to answer both questions, they would certainly be a candidate to get a little extra credit with their discussion boards. But just to meet the basic requirements of the assignment, you only need to actually answer 1 of the questions if there are more than 1. And to the best of my knowledge, unless I'm forgetting, I think that there are never more than 2 possible discussion questions. So some discussion boards will have 1 question, some will have 2, but I don't think any have 3 or more than that. Okay, so the last thing I want to say about the discussion board assignment really just has to do with the attitude we take toward it or the way we engage with our peers. So one reason this assignment is so important is because a lot of the learning in philosophy occurs when you can bounce ideas off each other, talk about ideas, argue about ideas, right? When you can critique arguments that we see in the reading, or critique the arguments and evaluate the arguments of your classmates. You learn by being forced to confront ideas you might disagree with. You also learn by having people poke and prod at your ideas and making them force you to rethink certain things and ask yourself the question, why do I think this way? So for that reason, discussion really is an integral part of learning philosophy. However, one of the things to keep in mind here is that the way we engage with each other on the discussion boards has to be in a cordial, polite, and respectful manner. In philosophy, it's always okay to critique ideas. It's always okay to critique arguments. And that, again, is a crucial part of how you learn. But what it's never okay to do is to critique people. What it's never okay to do is to criticize people. So our focus is always going to be on the ideas, on the arguments, on the questions that are asked in the prompt. The focus is never on the individual making the post. Right? We're never criticizing the person. We might only be criticizing or critiquing or pushing in some way or evaluating the things that they say, the arguments they make, the ideas they're putting forth. And I think if we follow that general guideline, I'm hoping that this can really be a place that not only helps you further learn the material, but enriches your understanding of it and helps you move beyond just the points that are made in the lecture videos. In any case, I will cut this video here. If you have any further questions on the discussion board assignment, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. So with that, I will stop. Thank you, and I will see you next time.